Hello to my kings, queens, and in-betweens. I'm Valerie, and welcome to my channel, The Bookish Valkyrie. So today's video is a wrap-up for all the books that I read in November and December, and since a lot of them were in series, I'm going to start with the series books all grouped together first, and then go through what I read in chronological order. So I'm going to start with Dungeon Crawler Kaale. So I read the first 5 novels in the Dungeon Crawler Kaale series. I have tried multiple times now to explain what Dungeon Crawler Kaale is, and I have failed epically. So I'm just going to go with what it says on the inside of the flap. You know what's worse than breaking up with your girlfriend? Being stuck with her prize-winning show cat. And you know what's worse than that? An alien invasion, the destruction of all man-made structures on Earth, and the systematic exploitation of all the survivors for a sadistic intergalactic game show. That's what. Join Coast Guard vet Kaale and his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, as they try to survive the end of the world or just get to the next level in a video game like trap-filled fantasy dungeon. A dungeon that's actually the set of a reality television show with countless viewers across the galaxy, exploding goblins, magical potions, deadly drug-dealing llamas. This ain't your ordinary game show. Welcome, Crawler. Welcome to the dungeon. Survival is optional, keeping the viewers entertained is not. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what this series is about. And as the books progress, Kaale gets more and more unhinged, Donut becomes more and more delightful, and it's a wild ride. Definitely not for the faint of heart. Like, if you can't handle horrifying situations that are kind of hysterically written, then this isn't for you, but that is exactly my jam. I read the first 5 books in this series between November and December, and I am currently on the 6th book. I honestly have been taking my time with it. I've been taking my time with it because the next one will not be available until I think like the 12th or 13th of February. So I'm reading it in between my other books. So I gave this series a 4.75, which obviously I rounded up to a 5 on Goodreads. I have really enjoyed it so far, and I am interested to see what the ultimate end game is gonna be. So yeah, absolutely recommend Dungeon Crawler Kaale. The next 18 books that I read were all in the Christmas Falls series, seasons 1 and 2. I opted to not reread the first book in the Christmas Falls series, which is Grinch Kisses by DJ Jameson, mostly because I was wanting to make it through both seasons before the end of the year. I had hoped that I would get through them all before Christmas, but I think I started a little too late in November to get that done, and I ended up finishing the final book in the Christmas Fall Season 2 on the last day of the year. So I made it, but barely. And since there are 18 books, I am not going to go over each and every one of them. If you are wanting me to do like a rundown of them for like Christmas in July or for next Christmas, I would be happy to do that. Just let me know in the comments and I will make that a plan. But for the purpose of this wrap up, it's just a whole a whole lot of Christmas romance that it all boils down to 18 Christmas romances written by various authors in the same town. The first season has the overarching storyline of a giant snowstorm blowing through and trapping people to varying degrees in Christmas Falls. So you've got that snowed in feel going throughout the first season, along with the mystery of a holiday themed graffiti artist who is going around to all the different businesses and putting up street art that is actually really pretty. The very first book, Grinch Kisses, does set up a lot of that storyline, and then you just see pieces of it throughout. So I would definitely recommend that if you're going to cherry pick through the series, at least read the very first book, because that will give you a good overall setup for all of your other couples and uh, for the town-wide events that happen throughout all of the books. And then the second season, the local pet shelter has had a pipe break, and they are frantically trying to farm out all of their cats and dogs and whatnot to the various people who are willing to take them in throughout Christmas Falls. So you'll get a lot of pets throughout this second season. Then on top of that, there is also an overarching theme of a secret Santa who is leaving little gifts for people and doing good deeds like clearing driveways, decorating, donating things. So basically, just a secret Santa that's going around doing a bunch of good or encouraging anonymously the townspeople to get in on the do-gooding. And it's all very fun. There's a lot of stuff that I would definitely say you're gonna want to maybe check your content warnings on for grief. There are a lot of stories that involve grief, especially in the second season. Um, there are a lot of people who are parentless or have lost a parent, or a spouse or a sibling. Definitely keep that in mind when you are looking through, but all of that is pretty clear in the summary of the books. So if that is an element that you are wanting to avoid, then it's pretty easily spotted and you can do that. I actually think that reading the Christmas Falls books all back to back the way that I did kind of did a disservice to at least one of the Christmas books that I read that were not a part of the Christmas Fall series, because I was just so in it, like so fully in it with the Christmas stuff all the way. And so I think it took me a little bit more to get into that book than it necessarily should have, but I'll get into that later when I get to that book. So that covers, let's see, 23 of the books that I read in November and December, split between Dungeon Crawler Carl and the Christmas Falls series. So the first book that I finished reading in November was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. It really was not to my taste. I was just looking for small town cozy romance, and I mostly got that, but it all felt very shallow. None of the characters felt fully fleshed out except for the main characters, and even they felt a little on the light side of character development. And I just think that maybe Laurie Gilmore isn't the author for me. I can totally understand why people are enjoying this, especially if they are Gilmore Girls stans. I get it. I totally get it. I watched Gilmore Girls too, and I honestly was kind of hoping to get that kind of like cozy, close-knit community feels. I can see where the author was putting it, but like it's like I could actually see the author's attempts at this as opposed to it just genuinely feeling like a Stars Hollow read alike. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically I just didn't connect with this author's writing or her characters, so I gave it a 3-star because there was nothing technically wrong with how it was written, but just really didn't enjoy it. Technically, I probably should have given it 2 stars because I didn't enjoy it, but like I can objectively see that this is not a bad book. It's just not for me. The next book that I read was something that was recommended to me by my friend Tony, and that is Football Sunday by Daryl Banner. It is the first book in the Spruce, Texas series. This community and these characters all felt much more fleshed out and more genuine than what I saw in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I gave it 4 stars, and I definitely will be continuing reading this author. Oh, I didn't tell you what it's about. All right. So basically what Football Sunday is about is Our two MMCs are guys who went to the same high school together but never really ran in the same circles. They were just kind of on the peripheral of each other's lives. One of them is currently working in his parents' cafe and has been working there since high school. He is also going to college on the side, trying to get his business degree, and he's working on his passion for creating high end desserts. His family highlights one of his desserts every Saturday, and he's kind of chafing at the boundaries that he's currently living within, but he's still working on his passions and what he wants to do with his life. And then our other MMC is back for the summer, and it's the first summer in a few years that he's been back from college. He's spent most of his summers abroad and avoiding the small town that he grew up in. He's a high school football star who went to college and discovered that he was no longer a big fish in a small pond. He was just a fish in a pond. That was kind of a difficult thing for him to explore. And he's also taken the opportunity away from home to explore his identity as a gay man. And when he comes back for the summer, his first stop is into this cafe where our other MC is working, and he is absolutely delighted to see him. They've honestly kind of been crushing on each other since high school, and uh, one thing leads to another. They start exploring a relationship on the down low, and it goes from there. And then the next book that I picked up is Doc Tease, which is the first book in DJ Jameson's Swallow Cove series. I believe you do see a character in the Christmas Falls series that actually is a transplant from Swallow Cove to Christmas Falls. So there's that tie. So Doc Tease is a May-December romance between a guy who has grown up in Swallow Cove and is like the darling of the community, and an older guy who moved in about 5 years ago and is still struggling to be seen as part of the community and not the new guy. Basically, the younger guy is working in his father's bait shack, and he's taking business classes, and he's about to graduate, and he's struggling to be seen as an adult with the ability to contribute value to his father's business that he knows he's going to be taking over later on. And so he's got this friction with his dad on the one hand, and he has been in love with this older guy since he was in high school, and the older guy has not paid him any mind until recently he started to get flustered around him because our younger main character is very, very bold in his pursuit of the older main character. And then our older main character is running a boating service where he ferries people around on the lake, and he hosts a lot of like bachelorette parties and whatnot. He has several boats that work for him. He is struggling to find a way to be more a part of the community, so he decides to put on a dock hop, and he's having a hard time getting the locals at Swallow Cove to participate in his dock hop. He's got the more populated, more like casino laden side of the lake on board, but he really wants to feature Swallow Cove and the small businesses there. So since our younger character is grew up in the community and has a lot of sway with the community, they decide to work together to get this dock hop going, and that creates the forced proximity that leads to them having a relationship, and it goes from there. So the next book that I read is Fake Out by Eden Finley. I picked this book up on Kindle Unlimited several months ago when I was running out of CU hockey books to read, and I wanted to explore Eden Finley and Zaxton James a little bit more. This one in particular was a book that I saw recommended on Novelty Corner, so I picked it up and then forgot about it, and then came back around to finding it and eventually started reading it in November. Chaos reading. So this is the first book in the Fake Boyfriend series by Eden Finley. So one of our main characters has been living a lie since high school, since he left home for college, really. Basically, he was in a long-term relationship with his high school sweetheart, and when she wasn't making it easy for him to break up with her, he took what he saw as the easy way out and told her that he couldn't be with her and they weren't going to get married because he was gay. But that was a lie. He told her that hoping that they could split and in an amicable way and move on with their lives. But of course, she told the whole town that he was gay. Uh, and now he's had to either admit that he's lying or commit to the bit. So, this whole time that he's been away from home, going to college and working, he has been committed to the bit. He hasn't corrected anybody. He's not admitted to his lie. And when he runs into his ex-girlfriend at a bar and she invites him to her wedding, he needs to find a fake boyfriend to maintain his lie. And so his best friend offers her brother up as the perfect fake boyfriend because they can help each other out. In exchange for him posing as his boyfriend, he will set him up with an interview that will help his career as a sports writer. And the forced proximity of them being together, all of the drive there and in town, and then the drive back, leads to them kissing and somebody having a bit of a bisexual awakening and then pursuing that relationship back at the city. Things get messy and it's a good time. And then reading that book made me really crave rereading my favorite book from Eden Finley and Saxon James, and that is Goal Lines and First Times. And it is the third book in the CU hockey series, and I love it so much. It really is my favorite hockey romance. And it's also my favorite representation of somebody who is figuring out late in life that not only are they pansexual, but they are also demisexual, and the way that that particular pairing can be very confusing, and it makes absolute sense for it to happen late in life. I very much identify with that story, and this is just really well written. The hockey player in this romance makes a very public comment about how everybody kisses their bros in high school to figure out how to kiss, right? Like, everybody practice kisses with their bros in high school. I mean, everyone should kiss their homies. And then everybody kind of looks at him and is like, no, no, that is not exactly heterosexual behavior. You may want to check in with that best friend of yours and see if maybe he's gay. And I don't know, do a little soul searching. So he does exactly that. Turns out that his high school best friend is in fact gay and engaged to be married to his boyfriend. And this sends him spiraling into questioning his sexuality. So he goes on an app and starts chatting with people. And then the other MMC is having a similar moment. It starts with him getting broken up with again by another long-term girlfriend who just doesn't understand why he doesn't want to rip her clothes off at every turn. In the midst of the breakup, she suggests that maybe, perhaps, he might be gay. He's already started to figure out that he thinks he is demisexual, but the argument that she makes about how the only time he ever got really riled up and seemed, actually interested in sex was after they had watched an episode of The Witcher. So she thinks he has a thing for him, and that's what leads her to think that he might be gay. So he reflects on the point that she made about it and decides that, again, the only way to figure that out is to start talking to guys and see what happens. So they start talking anonymously on this app, and they bond over the fact that it's not been a very easy way for them to figure things out, because everything is a hey followed by a dick pic. So they're both kind of relieved to find that not only are neither of them sending each other dick pics, but they're both figuring themselves out, and they're both wanting to get to know each other before they even approach the idea of meeting in person, let alone having a physical relationship. So this actually spans a lot of time, and it turns out that the guy who was broken up with is the brother of the hockey guy's former captain and best friend. So they have connections that they don't know about. There are a few like moments where they are in the same room and even talking to each other, but they don't know who each other are. And it's a lot of fun. If you love the golden retriever black cat dynamic, you will definitely find that here. I just, they have such great banter, and I love each of them so dearly. And I just very much identify with both of their journeys, and I love them together. So this is my absolute favorite book in the series, and it's the only one in the series I've actually reread, except for the first one. So, which actually happens to be his twin brother's story. Anyway, definitely recommend it. Gave it 5 stars. Loved it. And then the next book that I read was a graphic novel that I borrowed from the library through Libby, and that is Ghostopolis by Doug Tennepool. It is following a young boy who can see ghosts and an older, disillusioned, scruffy guy who works for the government entity that is responsible for making sure that the denizens of the other side stay on the other side. And so he is hunting down like a skeleton horse that is roaming around, and just as that horse has made its way into this boy's room and has him absolutely terrified, he shoots the device that sends them back to the other side through the boy's bedroom wall, not knowing that he's there, and accidentally sends him to the other side with the horse. And now he is on a mission to retrieve this living boy from the land of the dead. I I enjoyed it. It was all right, but I really don't remember much of the story. It hasn't stuck with me. I gave it 4 stars at the time that I read it, but since it really just has not stuck with me, I think I maybe should change that to more of a 3 star. I don't know. But regardless, I enjoyed it at the time that I read it. It was great. But I won't be rereading it or purchasing it to live on my shelves, because it just hasn't stuck with me. And then the next book that I finished reading was You Better Be Lightning by Andrea Gibson. This is maybe my second favorite of their bodies of work. My favorite collection of poetry by Andrea Gibson is Take Me With You. But You Better Be Lightning is also really well done. It's definitely a little more in depth. Like, there's not so many shorter pieces as there are in Take Me With You, which is possibly why I think I like Take Me With You more. But if you really like a long piece of poetry or prose, then this is definitely a good collection for you. I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it a 4.75. And honestly, the only reason I think I didn't give it a 5 star is because I knew how much more I liked Take Me With You. So rounded up to a 5 star on Goodreads, but that's like the nitty gritty of it for me. And the next novel that I read was So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. This is her 2024 release, and it is a story centering around vampires and friendship. So our main character is dreading her birthday and is not pleased to find out that her husband has surprised her with a girls getaway weekend with her best friend that she hasn't talked to in months. She is wanting to just get through this weekend as quickly and painlessly as possible. She finds herself dragged to a bar by her bestie, and then after that to a house party with some mysterious people that they meet at the bar. Things get dicey at the party, and they wind up in a situation where they are turned into vampires in order to survive. And then they have to deal with their newfound thirst for blood along with the toxic place that their friendship has come to, and try to fix both at the same time. It is definitely about female friendship more than anything else. There is a sort of like background romance with one of the vampires, and there is definitely plenty of blood and gore and death. But the vampires aren't really the center of the story. The center of the story is the friendship. So if you are wanting something that is just like a good vampire story, I wouldn't necessarily suggest this one. But if you are wanting to read a horror story that is exploring friendship and how toxic it can be, then I think that this would be a great one for you. I enjoyed it a lot. It's not my favorite. My favorite is still Such Sharp Teeth, but this is probably a close second. All right, so on to December. And so the first book that I finished reading in the month of December that was not Dungeon Crawler Carl or Christmas Falls related was But What Will People Say? Navigating Mental Health, Identity, Love, and Family Between Cultures by Sahaj Kaurakoli. So this book was written by the person who runs the Instagram account Brown Girl Therapy. This book focuses on the unique experience that is growing up in America as the child of an immigrant. Seeing the posts on Brown Girl Therapy was very eye-opening and helped me kind of like understand myself better. And so it was more of that in reading this book. It was very interesting. It wasn't exactly my experience. There were definitely things more geared towards people who are more firmly rooted in their non-American heritage than I am. It didn't really discuss the rootlessness that you can feel as the child of an immigrant without any real connections to your non-American heritage that I have experienced. She kind of touches on it a little bit in this book, but not as thoroughly as I was hoping for. So it was very well written, and there were a lot of really good insights to be found in this book. But for me personally, it wasn't what I hoped it would be. I ended up giving it a 4-star. I just didn't connect with it as much as I was hoping to. And then the next book that I read was Make the Season Bright. In my end of year tag, this was one of my disappointing reads of the year. It was really hyped up. This author has been really hyped up, and I personally just didn't connect with these characters. Their relationship is just a touch too toxic for me. I enjoyed it a lot more than some other toxic relationships that I've read, but it didn't meet the hype for me. I just didn't connect with these characters. Like I said before in my previous video, I am still interested in reading more from Ashley Herring Blake, but I am definitely going to be approaching her other books with a grain of salt to help balance out the hype behind her books, just to set my expectations a little bit better. And like I hope that they meet the hype, but this one didn't, so I don't know if those ones will either. Oh, I should probably tell you guys what this is about. The story is following two different musicians who grew up together. They were best friends and then lovers, and they were actually engaged, and one of them left the other one at the altar, literally. So, it's a second chance romance, and that is a really, really, really difficult thing to come back from. I did believe their connection, and I did believe that in the end, their relationship made sense. So I think it's just the level of toxic that they were at before they got to good that that and because we started at toxic, I think is why I wasn't really able to connect with them. So I ended up giving this a 3-star, and again, I am hoping that future books that I read by Ashley and Harry Blake will hit the spot a little bit better. Now, this next book definitely met my expectation. So, The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rosh has definitely had a lot of hype, and I know some people have been disappointed by it, but I am definitely falling on the side of I loved this. I had a great time reading it. I loved both of the characters, and I loved the plot that was behind this story. The idea is that these are the princes of Christmas and Halloween, and they are supposedly vying for the hand of the princess of Easter. However, uh, our Christmas prince is her best friend and not interested in her, and his brother is actually kind of head over heels in love with her, so he super doesn't want to marry her. And our Halloween prince is most definitely not interested in her either. These two are very much interested in each other. And frankly, the Easter princess is very much not interested in either of them either. So it is a whole lot of presenting one story to the media and parents and trying to figure out how to find their happy ever after and what really makes sense for them. In the background, the bad guy in this is actually Santa, the Prince of Christmas's father. So we've got, evil corporate Santa, and that's interesting. I really enjoyed the solution that they came to with that, and I'm looking forward to reading the next book in this series. I gave this 4.5 stars, and I think the only thing that that the author could have done to make this a 5-star for me would have been to have just a little bit more, just a little bit more time with them together. As much as I wouldn't want any less of them on their own and separate, because everything in here is necessary, in my opinion, to the story. So I wouldn't have any less. I would just ask for maybe a little bit more, maybe a longer epilogue or something. I definitely recommend it. Just make sure that your expectations are set correctly when you come into this. This is not just a cozy little romance. There is actual plot to this story, and it is kind of like an urban fantasy romantasy. So I don't know. I think it strikes the balance pretty well, and I really enjoyed it. And then the final book that I read for the year was A Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. This book is the one that I think uh, suffered from me reading so many of the Christmas Falls books right before and alongside it. The Christmas Falls books are so Christmassy. They are the most Christmassy romances to ever Christmas. So while this definitely has a Christmas setting, this is most definitely a romance that happens at Christmas time. It's not the level of Christmas romance that I was set at with Christmas Falls. I think that if I had read this first before I got so very into Christmas Falls, I would have enjoyed this a lot more, because I struggled with the beginning of it and getting into the beginning of it because of how not Christmassy the beginning was. But as the story unfolded and the romance really took off, I definitely got sucked in and I very much enjoyed it. So I think I will be continuing reading the books in this series. But I will maybe read them as like Christmas in July, or maybe make sure that I read them before I go reading anything like Christmas Falls. Like if there's a season 3, maybe read these and then pick up season 3. Ultimately, I gave this a 3.5 star. Again, I think that maybe that is an unfair rating on my part. It probably is more like a 4.5, because I have nothing negative to say about this book. It was a great ride. The characters were great. There was real stakes, and if you like to really be worried about, like, how are these two going to make this work, then this is definitely a book for you. Um, I think also maybe that was the other thing that was taken away from my ability to give this a higher rating, and that is because I was so solidly in the cozy Christmas read mindset that when I read this, the stress of this setup was a little much for me. I really do think I would have enjoyed it a lot more had I read it in a different order from my other Christmas reads. So that is everything that I read in November and December. And I think that's going to be it for me for now. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and let me know in the comments if you have read any books that you feel maybe you didn't give a fair shake to because of the circumstances around the way that you read them. If you don't want to do that, leave me a cat emoji in the comments to let me know you were here. And thank you for watching. See you next video. Stars shining bright above me. Night breezes seem to whisper sycamore tree. Dream a little dream of November and December of 2022. I don't know how many I read. A dungeon that's actually the set of a reality the 7th book, 8th book. I don't even remember. So I'm reading in between my the good doing. Do gooding? Good doing? Whatever. So the first book that I finished reading okay, I can do this. Made me really crave rereading my favorite book by Eden Finley.